6 weeks ago, as we ushered in this season of Lent by marking foreheads with ashes and the words, "Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return." This is not at all how I thought I would enter Holy Week. And for that matter, in my lifetime, did I ever imagine a Good Friday like the one we're observing today? On the other hand, while these holy days are looking nothing like they ever have before, on a fundamental level or an innermost level, perhaps the underlying meaning of these days has never been more significant. We walk like the disciples traveling with Jesus on the way to the cross without any trail markers or GPS guide showing us what lies ahead. And like the disciples, we don't know where or how this will end. Our feelings of vulnerability, anxiety, uncertainty, even denial are probably very similar to what the disciples were feeling in these last days spent with Jesus. In my Episcopal school chaplain's conversation on Zoom last week, grief expert David Kessler was referenced. Kessler presents a stage of grief that he calls anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief is that feeling that we get about what the future holds when we're uncertain. Our imaginations can also take off while we're experiencing anticipatory grief. There is a storm coming. There is something bad out there. And with a virus, this kind of grief confuses us. We know something bad is happening, but we can't see it. And we lose our sense of safety. As we wait for what may come, there is, as Kessler puts it, a collective grief in the air. Grief for what may await us around the corner. As with the disciples, we do not know what the resolution will be. Will this pandemic be short-term or long-term? We're all feeling that loss of safety. Near the end of World War II, a small scrap of paper was smuggled out of Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Nazi prison cell. He had been imprisoned for his participation in a plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler. Bonhoeffer had scratched these words on the small piece of paper: "Only the suffering God can help." I can only imagine what was on his heart when he wrote those 6 simple words. Only a suffering God can help. It appears that at that moment, sitting in a deplorable prison cell facing his own execution, Bonhoeffer found comfort in his faith in a God who suffers. The Apostle Paul writes in his letter to the Hebrews that we heard read today, "We do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who in every respect has been tested as we are." Paul, who also experienced imprisonment and execution, found strength in a God who cares, who suffers with us, who is victorious over victimization, and is essential to overcoming various forms of trauma. Only the suffering God, who identifies with us in our suffering, can help. Like Paul, Dietrich Bonhoeffer came to realize God lets himself be pushed out of the world and onto the cross. He is weak and powerless in the world, and that is precisely the way, the only way, in which he is with us and helps us. Only the suffering God can help. The God of the Bible, who wins power and space in the world by his weakness. Such faith sustained Dietrich Bonhoeffer in prison and sustained the Apostle Paul in his imprisonment. It is a faith also that can help sustain you and me in this time of uncertainty and anguish. Amen.